Welcome to yet another talk show of the Dynamic CISO. I, Smriti Gandhi, Executive Editor, welcome all of you to this show. And today I am joined by a very inspiring speaker. One, because she's a female. I would love to talk to her. And second, she's a cybersecurity expert. Let me give a small introduction about her, and then we will move into the Q&A. Her name is Tyler Cohan Wood, and she's an internationally recognized cybersecurity authority with over 20 years of highly technical experience, 13 of which was spent working for the Department of Defense. She was recently named as one of the top cybersecurity keynote speakers in the Onalita's 2020 report, Who's Who in Cybersecurity and the Top Influencers and Brands, and by Cybercrime Magazine as one of the top 30 cybersecurity experts to follow in 2021. So welcome to the show, Tyler.
Wow, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
I think the pleasure is all mine, and I'm honored to have you. So I will not take much of your time, and let me straight jump into the questions. And before I jump into the cybersecurity and data questions, I want to ask you, you have a journey from cybersecurity to healthcare. Let's start with who's Tyler Cohan Wood and her journey till now?
Well, it's definitely been an interesting journey. I started off really in cybersecurity, but in digital forensics, working for the DoD, and then moved into more of special comms within DIA. And my journey has really been all cybersecurity. When I graduated, I was a sociology major. They didn't really have cybersecurity degrees. They had coding, like Fortran, actually, maybe not Fortran. I think I'm aging myself here, but most of it, has been really self-taught. And, it's been a really incredible journey. And it's interesting because it isn't just a move from cybersecurity into kind of more digital health, but it's also been a move from developing these cyber capabilities that really helped keep our special forces safe when going on high threat missions. But it's also I've also written 3 books geared toward helping kids and parents really understand cybersecurity to keep their kids protected, and to keynote speaking, which I've been doing for many years now. And I just love it. I absolutely love it. But in 2018, I got sick, and I got really sick. And I didn't know it at the time. I was under kind of the assumption that you go to the hospital or the doctor and they run some tests or whatever, and they tell you what's wrong. And they say, here's this pill, and there you go. But that didn't happen for me. It was a really long and arduous journey. And I started noticing patterns because I'm an inventor. It's bizarre, but I invent capabilities. I invent new ways of doing things. And we'd go from doctor to doctor who would just send us back to the same doctors, and none of them ever talked to each other. It was like specialty siloing. And I had records, like hundreds of pages of records that I was bringing to each doctor appointment. And come on, there's no way any one person has the time to go through all of those records, consolidate and piece them together. And so that was really the first part of me saying, I'm going to use my cybersecurity background to help myself. And so I really use that that forensic portion where, you're really looking for new ways to kind of see where the evidence is. And by piecing it together in a consolidated spreadsheet, I was able to give the doctors a snapshot of every abnormal test, its chronology, and they loved it. And it was actually one of those charts that literally saved my life, because it caught a problem that would not have been noticed or caught until it was too late. It was a dangerous situation. But things just kept getting worse. I kept getting sicker, and I kept going to different doctors who would say, I've never seen anything like this, and you need to go see this kind of doctor. And this went on for a while, and I was really, really I was sick, and it was hard to function. It was hard to continue. And there's nothing in the world worse. Well, obviously there are things worse, but one of the hardest things to go through is to be really sick and not get any help and not be told why. And even though along the way there were many doctors that really wanted to help, but they just had never seen it before and they didn't know what to do. And in 2020, COVID happened and I freaked out. I remember that night, this is ridiculous. I wrote 32 pages of statements that could be used for AI to look for variants of this disease and how the trajectory was going to go. I mean, it's crazy. Who does that? But in doing that, I said, wait a minute, I'm going to look at this not from the perspective of someone who's doing digital forensics, but someone who's doing threat hunting and special comms, which is when your comms is hidden in the noise. So I took that assumption that maybe the answer was hidden in the noise. And I started to review my records utilizing this mindset and, using some of these statements that I had come up with. And, sure enough, by doing this, I ended up diagnosing myself with a disease that only 300,000 people in this country are known to have. And it's rare, but it causes other rare diseases. And I don't want for anyone else in the world to ever have to go through what I went through. And I know that I'm not alone. I mean, 1 in 13 Americans have a rare, hard to diagnose disease. And often, it takes 10 to 20 years to get a diagnosis. So that's how I made the leap. And as a patient, I want my healthcare information secure and safe. So there's that end too.
I don't know how do I tell you how amazed I am listening to this story. And I know I'm here to talk about cybersecurity, but I'll ask you one more personal question. I'm just too intrigued to ask you this. I mean, the way your journey, what you said, was very difficult. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And it was about you. It was not about somebody else in the family or somebody else going. It was you yourself. What motivated you to keep yourself so positive and to find out this solution and get into more details?
Well,
Isn't it
I
very
think
difficult? I'm just asking. I'm sorry if I'm being too personal.
it was, but and this is something that I never talk about. I talk about my illness, I talk about the disease, but I never talk about the symptoms and just how bad it was and just how hard it was. Because it's hard for me to do that. And, I, I actually didn't start figuring it out like that until, COVID. I knew that I needed a system like this, My Connected Health concept that I came up with. But I didn't, there was that one piece missing, and that was that other part of my cybersecurity background to look for what's hidden in the noise. And I have to say, one of the things that people with these rare diseases go through is when you get the diagnosis and you get the confirmation, this sounds crazy, but I was elated. I was so happy because I knew now what the answer was and what was wrong with me and why I was so sick, even though it meant this is a very difficult disease. And, not knowing what I had in front of me was terrifying. And that's another part of the journey in of itself. But at that moment, I was elated because, again, when you have no idea what's wrong, you're not only starting to question yourself, but you can't tell people what's wrong with you because you don't know. And, inevitably people will say that they want to help, but there's a part of them that I think doesn't believe it, even because a lot of these rare autoimmune diseases are, they call them invisible diseases. You can't really see what's happening inside. So, that was extremely difficult. And, I wish that I could say that I continued fighting throughout from 2018 to 2020 when I actually got the diagnosis. But I didn't. I had a doctor say to me at one point in early 19 that I had to stop trying to figure out what the answer was, and that sometimes you just never know what the answer is, and just learn to live with it. And I wish I could say that I was like, Listen here, what would you do? Would you learn to live with it?" But I didn't. I actually gave up for a while, and I started doing yoga and Tai Chi and all these things that help me mentally, but they help me emotionally cope with this. But I mean, there were times I didn't cope with it very well. It was really, really hard. And, it was honestly, I have to say, it was COVID that really snapped me into gear, because I got terrified that, oh my God, this is exactly what I thought. I said, looked at my husband and I said, "Oh my God, Matt, do you know what this means?" I said, "There's going to be thousands and thousands and thousands of people that have this disease that end up just like me, and no one can help them. I got to do something now." So it was the fear of other people suffering that kind of made me jump into action like that. And I mean, I think there's going to be a lot of transformations in healthcare, and there should be, because a lot of the onus is on the patient or the caregiver. And, that's not how it should be. And, you know, I don't know if just because my mind just works in these weird ways. And like I said, I'm an inventor. I'm not a CEO. I'm an inventor. And
I don't know whether you're calling it, why you're calling it weird, but anyways, I think, it's, and I'm not just saying it because we're talking on a show or anything like that, or because, I've invited you, but it sounds very easy, and I've been on that side, and I can discuss it later with you personally. But yeah, when you don't get an answer to a disease specifically,
yeah,
it breaks you down, because,
yes,
I think people are okay with asking, and that's why people go to doctors. You give me an answer, you tell me why I'm not
exactly.
well, and I'll be happy to do the next course of action. But if you can't tell me I'm not well, I'll go to another specialist, and I keep going till I get an answer. But when you don't get an answer, is what kills you more than the disease, I think.
Right. It,
Yeah. So
I agree 100%. That was, I mean, and I have ancillary diseases because of my main disease. And sometimes I don't know which is more important. Like which is, it's hard to explain, but when you have different problems, whatever's causing the most problems at that moment is where you focus. And I have a team of really, really good doctors now, but I know with 100% certainty that if I hadn't gone and done that and found the answer myself, I would not have a diagnosis, and I probably wouldn't be sitting here talking to you. So, and I knew that too on some level, because your body. That's the thing that drove me crazy. Is I'm sitting here and I can't tell you how many times we would go to the doctor and they would look at the records, and you have to understand, at this point, I learned how to read medical journals. I can tell you exactly what certain enzyme proteins and various things do, but I can't spell them or I cannot pronounce them. So, I mean, I went crazy. Just like, I would look at every test result, put it in its chronology, and I was always thinking, looking and thinking. And but how many of these doctors, would turn to my husband and they'd say, "Has she been under a lot of stress lately?" And I'm like, "I'm a woman. I'm always under stress. I'm everything's stressful."
yeah, I know there has been, when now with this Instagram and everything, there has been a reel which is, revolving, and everybody's trending. when woman and husband are talking, and when the woman is in her menses, she just says, my uterus, my opinions, just shut up.
Yeah.
So, women go through stress all the time. So yes, that it is. You made a mark personally in your life for yourself and not for anybody else.
Right.
Professionally also, you have made a mark, by making a name in the field of cybersecurity in the so-called male-dominated territory. How did you do that?
Um, I don't actually know. I mean, I think it was one of those things. Like if I look back on it, I guess I would say curiosity. It was something I loved. I love helping people, and I love teaching people how to help and protect themselves. And I talk about it a lot, and I like to talk, and I write, and it's just kind of one of those things that sort of starts happening. And when I first started doing keynotes, I don't think I wasn't very good
Well,
because,
I still think I'm not good.
well, everyone thinks that it's only when you, and this has actually been, I've been doing keynotes since 2014, and I figured out the key. The key is I used to try to do presentations like other people that I looked up to, and tell people what everyone else was saying so that I wouldn't stand out and be weird and different and unique. And it was only when I learned to appreciate that you know what, that is actually what makes people want to see you talk, is that you are different. We're all different, and we all have that unique thing. And once we have confidence with that, that's when that's when you shine, and that's when you really can help people and really get the messages of whatever it is, whether it's cybersecurity, whether it's better patient experience, anything. That's how you can really get the message across. And people can tell whether it's virtual or whether it's in person if you really genuinely care about them. And I know that may sound strange, but an audience can tell. And for me, it's about helping, and it's about them. And I really kind of like it if they laugh at my jokes every once in a while.
Your personal and profession, both, whatever, your journey, what you've spoken about, seems very, you want to be connected with the people and, share your experience, share your story, so that if you want to ensure that anybody can benefit out of it, whatever you have gone through. I'm sure, no, you wouldn't want anybody to go through that. So, kudos
No
to you.
way.
So yeah,
No way.
I'll move to the topic. I mean, talking about cybersecurity now, one of your topics which is close to your heart. People, usually talk about, both the perspective. One is the criminal perspective. One is the defender perspective. Currently, with this scenario, with the COVID coming in, a lot of cybersecurity attacks and everything has increased. How are you seeing things changing from both the perspectives, from the criminal and the defender?
Well, it's interesting because when COVID happened and we moved completely to work from home, especially in 2020, all of a sudden, the corporate network is now your home network too. And the attack surface just greatly expanded. The other issue is that people got really scared, and the ground started shaking for a lot of people, because you're suddenly forced with your own mortality, your loved one's mortality, all the other things that go along with that. And it was really scary. And that a lot of criminals really banked on that. And when people are afraid already, it's a lot easier for hackers to go after them, or threat actors to really, not hackers, that's different, but threat actors to really go after people who are suffering, because any social engineering attack is really going to have three components to it: fear, reliance on people's good nature and trust, and urgency. And if you ever get a call or any message that says urgency, if you don't do this right now, you're going to lose everything or whatever, hang up the phone. So
That's a
that's
good
something that's
takeaway.
changed. Hackers, a lot of the threat actors are money motivated, and frankly, ransomware, it pays. And it's probably the easiest tactic, because you just have to find one person to click a link or get something in. And I'm not entirely sure it's that person's fault anymore, because I think there's too many scams and attacks, and we're only human. You can't be always on your best, so inevitably it's going to get through. And it's it it's just kind of one of those things where when the threat landscape expanded, people got more afraid. Hackers took advantage of that. And when you have threat actors now going after hospitals, that's where I get pretty concerned. And I think that crossed a line that hadn't been crossed before. And
You already continue, please continue.
yeah.
You spoke about ransomware as a service, and I can see that's a huge growth area for the criminals. But I want to speak to you about, since you already highlighted a little about ransomware. I was reading about you, and I wanted to ask you this question. I read about, your session, your interviews, your keynotes on dark kryptonite. So, what is dark kryptonite, and how is it different from the other cybersecurity solutions? If you could highlight, I know I'm getting a little technical, but I just thought
that's okay. So I think of all the capabilities or inventions or whatever you want to call it that I've created, whether for DIA or for this company or for myself. This is the one that I like the most and I'm the most proud of, because I've been in this industry for a really long time, and we've gotten to the point where I do not believe that we can fix a broken internet. The internet was not designed to be secure. And I feel as if we're just putting band-aids and band-aids and band-aids on a gaping hole that you just are never going to be able to completely secure, because there's just too many moving parts. So, I've always seen the solution as another internet. And I can't go into the secret sauce of it, but it's more of a special comms type of capability that is cybersecurity. And I guess to really understand it, you have to understand special comms. Special comms it's not secure comms. Secure comms is typically encryption, but you can see there's encryption going through the network. You can see what's happening. Special comms, your devices and what you're doing still have to have a profile that looks normal, but your comms are actually hidden in the noise. And that's a really out of the box, different way of thinking. And dark kryptonite is a special comms cybersecurity capability. And I'm really excited about it. We have it working, and it's really incredible. And
it sounds incredible from whatever you said as well. We spoke about, you highlighted a little on the ransomware, on the dark kryptonite as well. One of the very important part of security or cybersecurity, a lot of people miss out saying that, miss out the main part, which is data. Now, if I have to move to data, why is data security just not an IT issue? I mean,
well, I don't think I think a security issue is a whole company issue, not just an IT security issue, because the two have to go hand in hand. There shouldn't be as much of a separation between IT and cybersecurity as there is. In fact, I think they should be together as one unit, because you're both working on the same thing. You want the same thing. It's the same pipes, it's the same network, it's the same devices. So, there should be a lot more cohesion. And, when you have more cohesion between those two groups, it helps because then both can see the other's perspective, which only enhances the security and the productivity of whatever they're doing.
I think COVID made a lot of people realize that, the business, each organization has two very important parts of the body, which are two hands. One hand is IT and the other is security. And as you said, if they move together and work together in cohesion is when the business will be able to move forward, and work.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so.
In the start, Tyler, you mentioned about, how you've, about the kids and all, and you've also written a book on catfishing. I think that's a subject which is very close to your heart, right? So,
Yeah.
if you talk about catfishing, I'm sure a lot of people, the community knows about it. Could you highlight a little more on the catfishing? And what is the end game in catfishing?
Well, the end game in some instances, I think is trickery. I don't know what the end game is in some instances, but I wrote that for a particular instance, and that was because when I was doing forensics earlier in my career, I did major crimes cases and intrusion cases, but the major crimes cases were primarily exploitation of children. So I wrote that specifically to teach parents and kids how to vet if who they're talking to is actually who they say they are, and to give them social media etiquette to protect themselves, which, is the same thing that any parent or any kid for any situation would work to help keep their kids protected in this, online domain. But, unfortunately, that is the end game in some of these catfish instances. Some of the ones that you see on TV, honestly, I don't know what the end game is. I can't tell because you're going to be on the show and you're going to meet the person. So why would you lie? I don't understand that.
And I think, social media has taken everybody by the storm, I mean, everybody wants to post everything, every small bit of their information, and they don't know, they don't think about the security angle till they actually go through it, or, somebody goes through it. So I think, people, parents need to be very worried about it. And, as we spoke earlier about, where you said that, IT and the security need to work in cohesion. Would you have any use cases or any examples to share, with our community about how technology and cybersecurity have now both become a part of the boardroom? Let's accept that fact.
Oh,
it was
yes.
long due. It was long due, but
it's about
COVID,
time.
I think COVID made it happen, So any use
Yeah.
cases on how, and still I think a lot of companies and organizations think of technology and security, as I said, two different hands, not the same hand. Actually, they're a part of this, part of the same hand, same body. And technology and cybersecurity, I think, complement each other very well. So would you
Yes.
have any use cases or anything to share about how these two functions can actually complement and, take business to a bigger level and a newer success level?
I still don't understand why they're two separate entities, but maybe I'm missing something, because security is just a part of it. So, and yes, there were many use cases when I worked in the government where, these two factions work together very well. And, it's technology and cybersecurity. To me, it's one and the same. And I know many people would say, oh my God, she's crazy, which maybe they're right. I don't know. But if you're using the same pipes and the same machine and the same everything, I mean, you want it to be secure. So it just makes sense to me. The other issue sometimes that I hear about is that the offense sides of a company, the red teams, don't really work with defense. So offense and defense aren't really working together. And, that's something that I think is incredibly important, because they're two sides of the same coin. And that's kind of how I feel with IT and cybersecurity. They should just, work in tandem, work together.
That's what I said. If they, I mean, a lot of organizations still don't understand that part. And I think it's high time that, we
They
talk
do.
about that. And, in the paucity of time, I'll ask you one last question.
Sure.
I'm very intrigued to know more about your personal life, but I think that we'll keep it for another day because that's very inspiring. And, not only for the community or for women, I would say, for everybody to learn, and a lot of takeaways I have personally from my first question to you, where you spoke about your journey. But now that we spoke about digital health, when we started with digital health about your journey. So, what do you see? How do you see the future of digital health, and how is uh, you know digital health transforming the whole healthcare industry globally?
Well, I think that many strides were made in digital health, from because of COVID, and quickly, very, very quickly. And there are security issues, but what it does, and this is what I see the future being, is globalization of healthcare, especially with difficult cases, but secure and private. Where patients have access to their data, but I see like a My Connected Health sort of concept system where a patient, there's a single kind of system where a patient goes through the system and they're assigned doctors. And eventually, if it's a rare case like mine, they have different specialists from all over the world working together around one person's case, with the AI thinking in manners like how I thought when I diagnosed myself, with taking different things into account and using more of a cybersecurity kind of threat hunting AI models, turning them into healthcare models, because otherwise the AI models, that are to replicate doctors, well, why would you replicate the doctor? Do the hard work, like sorting through all those records that a human just, it can't do. And so I see globalization. I do see, utilizing a system like that, where you have a database learning things about every case. Eventually, it's going to be able to learn and find patterns in diseases that may not have been noticed before, which will then help pharmaceutical companies better target medications to, certain diseases. And I think that having more of a unsiloed specialty where they're working together more in tandem, it's just going to help medical knowledge exponentially. So that is where I see the future.
I should just say every question that I have asked you till now, every answer of yours has been so inspiring and beaming of positivity. And I can't tell you how much I have enjoyed this conversation.
Me
And I
too.
wish we could do it much more. But in the paucity of time, yes, I would have to end it. But yeah, thank you so much for taking out the time. And, I would love to do another talk with you just on your personal journey, whatever details you would want to share, because I think it's just not for the benefit, because you're all about benefiting others, and I truly believe that every journey of whatever you've shared with us till now in this show, um, and there's much more to it. It sounds, you've put it in a very extremely small nutshell, and there is much more to it. I think there is a lot of takeaway for everybody and an inspiration for everybody, especially after the pandemic, where that every family has lost someone close, a little far in the family. So I think I would love to do that. But thank you so much for this, and I hope you enjoyed it as well.
I
And
really enjoyed speaking with you, and thank you for having me.